Everyone's calling this a reset. Marco Rubio arrives in Delhi. Handshakes. Joint press conference. Quad meeting. The headlines say US-India relations are back on track. They're not. What's actually happening is a trap. 4 of them. And they're all connected. Here's what the headlines don't tell you. India currently faces a 50% tariff on its goods entering the United States. That tariff was imposed specifically because India buys oil from Russia. Meanwhile, 40% of India's oil passes through a strait controlled by Iran, a country that Israel wants India to declare a terrorist organization. India is also Israel's single largest arms customer, with an $8.7 billion weapons package in the pipeline. And 86% of India's existing military equipment? Russian origin. The US wants India to cut Russia. Israel wants India to cut Iran. Iran controls India's oil supply. Russia supplies India's air defense. And the US is tariffing India for navigating between all 4. This isn't a diplomatic reset. This is a structural trap, and Jaishankar's multi-alignment doctrine is under more strain right now than at any point in its 2-decade history. To understand why these 4 relationships are colliding now, you have to see how each was built independently, as if the others didn't exist. The US relationship was built on trade. India runs a $34 billion surplus with the US. $87 billion in exports flow from India to American consumers every year. Diamonds, machinery, textiles, pharmaceuticals. For decades, this was a stable economic foundation. Then Trump's Liberation Day arrived in April 2025, a 26% reciprocal tariff on all Indian goods. By August, it had escalated to 50%. Not because of trade imbalance. Because of Russian oil. The Russia relationship was built on 2 pillars, energy and defense. After the Ukraine invasion in 2022, India made a pragmatic decision, buy discounted Russian crude. At the peak, Russian oil accounted for over 40% of India's imports. The defense pillar is even deeper. 86% of India's military equipment currently in service is Russian origin. The T-90 tanks, the Su-30 MKI fighters, the INS Vikramaditya carrier, all Russian. This isn't a preference. It's a structural dependency built over 6 decades. The Israel relationship was built on defense technology. India is Israel's single largest arms customer. 34% of all Israeli arms exports come to India. The February 2026 Modi-Netanyahu summit elevated ties to a special strategic partnership and approved an $8.7 billion procurement package including Air Laura missiles, Iron Dome technology, and Iron Beam laser systems. Modi became the first Indian PM to address the Israeli Knesset. The Iran relationship was built on geography and energy security. Iran sits on the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which 40% of India's oil passes. India invested $370 million in Chabhar port, just 300 kilometers east of Hormuz, as a strategic bypass to Pakistan's Gwadar and a gateway to Central Asia. When the Iran war escalated and Hormuz transit collapsed, Iran gave India something no other country got: priority passage for Indian vessels. Each relationship made sense in isolation. But in 2025 to 2026, they collided. And the collision created 4 traps. On 6 August 2025, the United States did something it had never done to India before. It imposed an additional 25% tariff on all Indian goods, on top of the existing 25%, specifically because India was buying Russian oil. The total hit 50%. Nomura called it similar to a trade embargo. The sectors hit hardest: diamonds and jewelry at $10 billion, machinery at $7.7 billion, textiles and apparel at $8.4 billion combined. GTRI estimated that a sustained 50% tariff could reduce India's US exports by 40 to 50%. India's response at the WTO: it filed for the right to retaliate on $7.6 billion of US goods. Revised it to $3.82 billion when Trump doubled steel tariffs. But here's what most coverage misses: India never actually imposed any of those retaliatory duties. Every filing was an enabling action, preserving legal rights at the WTO while bilateral trade agreement negotiations continued. Then came the Mission 500 commitment. India agreed to purchase $500 billion in American goods over 5 years. That's not a trade deal. That's a purchase commitment under coercion. And then there was Trump's Truth Social post in April 2026, reposting a radio host who called India a hellhole and Indian immigrants gangsters with laptops. India's Mia called it obviously uninformed, inappropriate, and in poor taste. The tariff was still in effect. The tariff was eventually rolled back in February 2026 as part of an interim deal, the punitive Russia-linked portion withdrawn, the reciprocal rate reduced to a target of 18%. But the legal foundation is uncertain. The Supreme Court struck down the reciprocal tariff mechanism in February, and a federal court struck down the 10% baseline in May. The entire tariff architecture may be unconstitutional. But the structural lesson is already clear. The US weaponized market access specifically to coerce India's energy sourcing decisions. Energy sovereignty was the price of US market access. 90%. That's the percentage of India's crude oil that is imported. The highest dependency in India's history, 90.8% in February 2026. And 40 to 46% of those imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz, a 33-kilometer wide passage between Iran and Oman that Iran effectively controls. When the Iran war escalated in early 2026, Hormuz transit collapsed. Vessel traffic dropped from over 130 ships per day to single digits. Iraq, Kuwait, and Qatar, 3 of India's top 5 suppliers, dropped to zero exports. Brent crude hit $138 a barrel. Moody's cut India's GDP growth forecast by 0.8 percentage points. India's Gulf crude imports crashed 56%, from 2.7 million barrels per day to 1.2 million. And then Iran made a decision that no headline adequately explained. Iran gave India priority passage through Hormuz. 11 to 15 Indian vessels were allowed through, including 9 LPG tankers and a crude oil tanker for Indian Oil Corporation. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Garibabadi said Iran adopted a different approach for friendly countries like India. That's not goodwill. That's leverage. And it comes with a price tag. Iran is introducing a service fee for maritime navigation. And the safe passage requires Indian vessels to coordinate directly with Iran's military, which means Iran knows exactly what India is importing, when, and how much. Then came Israel's demand, designate Iran's IRGC as a terrorist organization. 44 countries have done it. Israel describes the IRGC as maybe the number one risk for the free world. Here's the structural impossibility. India cannot designate the IRGC without losing priority passage through Hormuz. The very entity Israel once declared terrorist is the entity controlling whether Indian ships can get oil. And if India loses Hormuz access, it also loses Chabhar port, $370 million invested, 10-year contract, US sanctions waiver already expired with no renewal. The Iran trap is not about ideology. It's about whether Indian ships can move through a war zone. And Iran holds the key. India is Israel's single largest arms customer. Let me put a number on that. 34% of all Israeli arms exports come to India. That's $20.5 billion. Israel accounts for 13 to 15% of India's total defense imports, making it India's third or fourth largest supplier. The $8.7 billion approved procurement package reads like a wishlist of advanced military technology, LRAM ballistic missiles with 400-kilometer range and Mach 5 speed. Iron Dome interceptors. Iron Beam, a 100-kilowatt laser weapon that costs $2 per shot. Spice 1000 precision-guided bombs. All with tech transfer provisions under discussion. At the February 2026 summit, Modi and Netanyahu elevated the relationship to a special strategic partnership. 17 pacts were signed. Netanyahu proposed a hexagon of alliances. Modi addressed the Israeli Knesset, the first Indian PM to do so. But here's what the defense partnership creates: leverage. The deeper India's defense ties with Israel, the more Israel can pressure India on Iran. And Israel is pressuring. The IRGC designation demand isn't a suggestion, it's a strategic request from a defense partner that supplies 15% of India's weapons. India's response at the UN tells the story. In the past decade, India has not voted against any of 175 Israel-Palestine resolutions. But increasingly, it abstains. In June 2025, India was the only South Asian, BRICS, and SCO member to abstain on Spain's ceasefire resolution. 149 countries voted in favor, India sat out. India also distanced itself from the SCO statement condemning Israel's strikes on Iran. The Israel trap is this: every $1 billion of defense procurement deepens India's obligation to a partner that wants India to declare war on Iran's military, the same military that controls India's oil supply. 86%. That number, from the Stimson Center, is the percentage of India's entire military equipment currently in service that is Russian origin. The Army, at 90%. The Air Force, 66%. The Navy, 41%. The S-400 air defense system, India's most advanced, cost $5.43 billion. 4 of 5 systems have been delivered. The fifth arrives this year. The S-400 proved itself in combat during Operation Sindoor against Pakistan in May 2025. It works. India wants the S-500 next. Turkey bought the same S-400 system. The US response: Turkey was expelled from the F-35 program under CAATSA sanctions. India bought 5 S-400s. CAATSA has not been invoked. The threat exists but hasn't been executed because the US needs India more than it needed Turkey. Then there's the oil story, and it's the most revealing data point in this entire system. In January 2026, under US pressure for the trade deal, India cut Russian oil imports to 19%, a 41-month low. India was complying. The coercion was working. Then Hormuz closed. By March 2026, Russian oil's share of India's imports jumped to 45%, a 9-month high. India paid a premium for it, $5 to $6 per barrel above Brent. Not because India wanted Russian oil. Because India had no other option. And here's the structural contradiction the US created. In August 2025, the US imposed a 25% punitive tariff specifically because India bought Russian oil. By March 2026, the US Treasury issued a waiver allowing India to buy Russian oil from sanctioned entities. The same purchase that triggered the tariff was now being permitted. The coercion cycle ate itself. Then there's the ruble-rupee time bomb. India imports $64 billion from Russia every year and exports $5 billion. That $60 billion surplus sits in special rupee Vostro accounts in Indian banks. Russia can't spend it fast enough. The structural pressure, surplus rupees push Russia to demand India buy more Russian goods, including weapons, which deepens the military dependency, which triggers more US coercion. It's a self-reinforcing loop. These 4 traps are not 4 separate problems. They are one connected system. The US tariff forces India to cut Russian oil. Cutting Russian oil makes India dependent on Hormuz. Hormuz is controlled by Iran. Israel wants India to declare Iran's military a terrorist organization. Declaring that threatens India's Hormuz access. Losing Hormuz access forces India back to Russian oil. Buying Russian oil triggers US tariffs. And the ruble-rupee surplus from that oil deepens the weapons dependency, which triggers more US coercion. You cannot resolve one trap without making another worse. That's not a coincidence. That's a structural design, not designed by any single actor, but created by the collision of 4 relationships that were built independently and are now pulling India in 4 contradictory directions simultaneously. Jaishankar has articulated India's position clearly. At Munich in February, we are very much wedded to strategic autonomy. At the Raisina dialogue, India's rise will be determined solely by India. At the Rubio press conference, we don't look at it as a zero-sum game. We have to manage and take care of all these accounts. His 5-point blueprint, dialogue, maritime safety, international law, oppose weaponization of markets, trusted partnerships, is a diplomatic framework for navigating the 4 traps simultaneously. But the Wire's analysis documents the gap. India made preemptive concessions to the US before any tariffs were imposed. It absorbed 50% tariffs without retaliation. It committed to $500 billion in US purchases under coercion. Trump unilaterally announced a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. India denied mediation but didn't push back on repeated US claims. When a sovereign energy procurement decision is made under tariff coercion, the rhetoric of autonomy and the reality of concessions diverge. And this isn't unique to India. The US has used this coercion cycle before. Turkey lost F-35s for buying the S-400, the same system India bought. Pakistan's aid was cut repeatedly, with limited compliance results. South Korea and Taiwan were pressured into ending nuclear programs through threat of abandonment. The Belfer Center at Harvard found that denial works against highly dependent allies but fails against those with alternatives. India is in the middle, dependent on the US market for 19.5% of exports, but with enough alternatives, BRICS, Russian oil, Israeli defense, Iranian geography, to make pure coercion leaky. The Hormuz crisis proved that when external shocks hit, structural energy needs override coercive leverage every time. 3 scenarios. None of them clean. Scenario A: India concedes to the US. Full alignment. This means cutting Russian oil imports, designating the IRGC, and committing fully to the Quad security architecture. The consequences: Iran revokes Hormuz priority passage. India loses its only guaranteed oil transit during conflict. Russia slows S-400 deliveries and withholds the S-500. The ruble-rupee surplus, $60 billion a year, has no resolution mechanism. India's air defense backbone is compromised at exactly the moment Pakistan is acquiring Turkish drones and Chinese missiles. The US would have to replace all of this. It has shown no willingness or capacity to do so. Scenario B: India holds multi-alignment. The current trajectory. Jaishankar continues managing all 4 accounts simultaneously. The consequences: perpetual tariff pressure, CAATSA risk, FCRA pressure, and no resolution of the structural contradictions. Every external shock, Hormuz closure, Russia escalation, Israel pressure, forces India into reactive pivots that undermine long-term strategic planning. Multi-alignment survives, but at the cost of continuous concessions to the most powerful partner. Scenario C: An external shock provides temporary relief. Hormuz reopens. A Russia-Ukraine ceasefire reduces oil pressure. The tariff architecture collapses under US court challenges. The consequences: temporary breathing room, but the structural problem remains. The 4 relationships are still contradictory. The next crisis, and there will be a next crisis, will recreate the same trap. The most likely outcome is a combination of B and C: multi-alignment under continuous strain, punctuated by temporary relief from external shocks, with incremental concessions to the US on trade and incremental deepening of defense ties with Israel and Russia. The real question isn't whether India will choose sides. India has chosen not to choose, and that decision is structurally rational given the 4-way trap. The real question is whether the US can afford to push India hard enough that multi-alignment collapses. Because if it does, the US doesn't just gain a partner. It inherits responsibility for replacing everything India loses: Hormuz axis, S-400 air defense, Chabhar port, and 60 years of Russian defense integration. And right now, there is no evidence that the US is prepared to do that. Rubio called India the cornerstone of US Indo-Pacific strategy. But a cornerstone that's being squeezed from 4 directions simultaneously isn't stable. It's under compressive stress. And structural engineering has a term for what happens to materials under compressive stress from multiple directions: they don't bend. They fracture. The 4-way trap isn't going away. The question is whether it's managed, or whether it breaks something that can't be repaired.